Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glen Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glen Sutherland. This week, my guest is Chris Lento. Chris, you want to start off by introducing yourself to everybody?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Glenn. Happy to be here.
Good to have you.
So I live in Boston. I've been a full-time real estate investor for 8 years now. Prior to that, I was doing real estate on the side as I worked for an aerospace company. I primarily or solely invest in the U.S. Southeast right now. So I focus on Charlotte down to Atlanta.
Okay.
And I run the company EM Capital Group. And we buy, operate, and sell multifamily properties.
All right. Well, you're already starting to spark my interesting questions, but multifamily means a lot of different things to a lot of people. We talking fourplexes, we talking hundredplexes, we talking 500plexes, we talking, what kind of things are you interested in?
Yeah, so I started with three families in Boston. We have a lot of things here called three deckers, which are just three on top of each other, tons of them.
Yeah.
And so I started with one of those, and then moved up to a second, and then moved to a 5 unit, and then from there I jumped to a 24 unit. And now I own a number of properties that are in the 24 to 35 unit range.
Yeah.
And then everything I've bought in the last 3 years has been 100 plus units.
Yeah.
So kind of been gradually moving up kind of the scale over the last 8 years.
Yeah. And I honestly did the same thing myself. And as you do that, I'm guessing that you brought in a bunch of team members. It's no longer like when I started off, it was just a me business, and I assume you have like just to help with doing a syndication and stuff. You're bringing in a group of people, and each people have roles.
Yeah, absolutely. So my company has 4 people in it.
Yep.
And they have roles and job descriptions. And then I partner with another company that's very similar to mine that has also I think they have 6 employees, and between the two of us, we buy the bigger properties.
That makes a lot of sense. And coming from like the triplexes, or this, what would you call them, stacked?
We call them three deckers.
Three deckers, that's it. Three deckers. So if we're going from a 3 decker to like the 100 plus units, like, is there stuff that's applicable, like the same skills that are useful on the small stuff that's useful on the big stuff?
So I think a lot of the stuff I learned on the smaller properties, because I manage them myself.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about like direct tenant interactions. I learned a lot about maintenance, what goes wrong, how much it costs to fix. I was already like kind of a handy person anyway, so I kind of knew how to do a lot of these things. But it gave me a frame of reference. And then I would say it's very different when you own the 100 units, because you have a full-time property manager, you have maintenance staff, you have leasing agents. But I draw on that early experience quite a bit, just to know like what things cost, what to expect. Ask the maintenance guys, are you guys putting in the same faucets so you have a common valve so you can change the valves out, right? Rather than changing the whole faucet out. Just like minor stuff like that comes in handy all the time.
I did the same thing too. I used to self-manage my stuff, and when I started, because obviously it's just trying to make cash flow and try to save some money when you're starting. But I think it also builds a respect for how miserable a property manager's job is.
Very tough job.
I think some people who are new are excited about that. They're like, hey, I just get like, depending on the multifamily might be 4 to 8%, or for the property management fee, or it might be up to 10 if you're doing some single family stuff. But they're like, oh, I just get a percentage of this rent and easy peasy. I only need this many houses and I can retire and just be a property manager. I don't think it's not for me. I'd rather be on the other side of it, but it's a thankless job. And maintenance, I think you nailed it on the head. Like, I just do my own maintenance, just understanding like how much time some stuff takes. Cause putting in like a kitchen yourself or anything, even myself, I'm still like, what's the right word for it? Stupid. I just went and put a kitchen in my basement, like just as a bar, like, and I'm like, I could hire someone to do it. Honestly, it's still one of those things I miss every once in a while, and it's my own house. but I just popped one of those in and I'm like, man, that took me like 6 hours to put that all together.
Right.
And you're like, whenever you get that bill from a property manager, you actually understand a little bit more about where they're
Right.
coming from, what's involved, dealing with tenants. So yeah, what do you think? What are you kind of talked about that briefly, but what are some of the lessons you learned from doing that? Or maybe we already nailed that.
Yeah, no, I think one on the resident interface side is just having like standard processes and procedures to deal with all aspects. So, um, coming from being an engineer, I was kind of shocked at how often people will lie to you and like, right over and over again. And the money's coming tomorrow, and a lot of heartbreaking stories, which are difficult to deal with. And if you just have a process like, hey, here's our eviction timeline, this is how we execute it, and um, having the property managers follow those procedures goes a long way. That way, you don't have to make all these judgment calls like, oh, so and so's mom's sick. Do we give them a break? Do we? It's just this is the process. We execute the process, and we're not in the business of giving people loans on their rent
Right.
that are likely not going to get paid back. Um, and then I had some pretty good insurance claims early on, so I learned a lot about kind of the insurance claim process, and that's been very valuable throughout the last 8 years. I've had a number of insurance claims and kind of have that down.
And honestly,
Uh,
that the insurance claim thing is a different beast between the multifamily and a single family house, or
yes, very
yeah,
different.
they're very different. I went through both of those processes. It's totally different.
Yeah, I usually get a public adjuster. That's
Yeah.
basically like your insurance person.
Yeah.
They get 10%, and they handle the paperwork. They handle the harassing the insurance company. They fight with the insurance company when the estimates come in low.
Yep.
Well worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah, and they have an alignment because they get paid when you get paid. So
Yeah.
with all of these things, I'm always looking for an alignment. I don't want to have a property manager that gets paid on a vacant unit because that doesn't make any sense because they're not
Right.
motivated to restock the whole thing up, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thing you just said was processes, and you're mentioning processes that property managers use. Like if you're doing 100 units, I'm assuming you're syndicating or underwriting. What kind of processes are you using now? Now that you're not doing the property management?
Yeah. I mean, on the acquisition side,
Yeah.
like we have a process for, reaching out to brokers, response time.
Right.
Once you get the deal in, evaluating the location first. So what are the criteria that we look at? We look at, area median income, crime ratings, school systems, population density, population. And to some degree, what I want to do is cast a wide net and then say no as early as possible.
Okay.
Like push them off. So okay, it's a 1965 deal. We're 1990 plus right now. So that one's out. Respond to the broker. Thanks for the email. We're looking for 1990 plus right now. Let me know when you have one of those that looks good. That way, we're not seeing deals. Over time, the brokers get used to that, and that way, you're not seeing deals that you're not interested in. And it's a numbers game, right? If you look at 100 deals, you might really hard underwrite 5 of them, maybe put an offer on one of them. So the more that 100 deals can be in your buy box, the better. So we have processes for all stages of the acquisition process.
Just thinking,
Sorry.
just with that, like, are you looking to invest in the US? Are you looking for a coach that has been doing this for much more than 1 year? In fact, doing this for almost 10 years? Do you want to do one-on-one calls? Do you want to actually have someone looking at your deals and actually thinking and worrying about your projects? If that's of interest to you, I'd love to get on a phone call with you. Go to glensutherland.com or at canadianinvestingintheusa.com and schedule a call. And we'll just do a quick 15 minutes, see if it works for you. I was thinking like some of the specifics to that, right? Like, what are you, like, do you document these down,
Yep.
or is it you have this in your head, right? Because I've
No,
seen
no, we haven't written down. Yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't written down. We have a tool that the property goes in, and then it's got a spot to put in the area median income. It's got a spot to put in the census tract income. It's got, a bunch of categories. And then if we review them, they don't meet our criteria, that gets moved on. And we send basically an automatic email to the brokers that just says, thanks for the email. Thanks for the info. Here's why we don't like it. And, keep them coming basically.
Yeah, and you just mentioned with like brokers, because when I'm dealing with brokers, you nailed it right there. Like being specific with them, you know, they honestly don't want their time wasted, and
Right.
they know exactly what you're looking for and what your buy buttons are. You're not going to offend them. That hey, if you just keep saying no to anything or don't respond, it's more offensive than giving them some specifics so they can actually go hunt for stuff. And I've found sometimes if they know exactly what you're looking for, they might even, find properties that aren't even unlisted because you might be so detailed that there's not a lot out there, and depending on the size
Right.
of the market.
And if you're consistent about it, they'll get used to it.
Yeah.
And ideally, right, they're going to come across this property that's, right in your narrow buy box. You're like, oh, Chris is going to like this one.
Yeah.
Like I got to send it over to him because you've told him no so many times. Hey, not pre-90s or, like personally, I don't like 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartments. Like if it's not two, I'm not interested for the most part. So
I even
specific things like that.
whenever I get looking at deals, I see so many that have like a mix, and there's like ones in there. And I'm just like, boy, they're like the numbers work on this one, but I'm like, I feel like the turnover. Like, who wants to stay in a 1-1?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind a
You don't mind
mix of one
1-1s? Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be. I would say more than 30%.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, Yeah, and the other thing we were talking about here is when you're giving specifics to like realtors and or brokers or whoever, um, whenever they do find you something that meets your criteria, buy it. Honestly, otherwise they're going to stop sending you stuff. It sounds
Well,
really,
at least underwrite it, right, and make sure it works.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know, but if you went through that thing, they sent you what you're looking for. Like, if you want to keep this relationship going, I found the best way is to actually complete it. They'll be way more excited to continue to do
Oh,
it.
absolutely. I mean, if you do a couple deals with the same broker, even one deal with a broker, now they know you're real. I mean, there's so many people kicking the tires out there, wasting brokers' time, learning. They're not really wasting brokers' time; they're learning. But if you have someone who this is a hobby forever, the brokers can tell that, and they just move on.
Yeah,
You're not going to see a good deal. But if you execute, you're going to get callbacks, and you're going to get more deals.
couldn't agree more. Uh, just flipping back when we were talking about documents and stuff. I don't. You can share if you feel like it, but like, where do you store them? Like when you're building out your SOP, like your service operating procedures. Like, do you use like a CRM? Do you just use like Google Docs? Like I'm not like always work. I'm always just curious how everyone else is kind of storing.
Yeah, I use Monday.com,
Okay.
which is like it's kind of like a project management tool
Mhm.
that's pretty customizable. So I just have like a board, they're called, that have like all these phases, and then there's kind of docs that link to the standard operating procedures.
That's
Um,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
what I switched to. I used to use like Google Docs, and I had like each procedure, and
Yep.
I ended up hiring a few VAs a couple years ago, and I was like, this just isn't what I'm looking for. Like I liked it, worked, it was functional, but it wasn't. I don't know, it was cumbersome. It was kind of like stumbling over it, and I switched everything over to I have a CRM, and I put everything in the CRM. But I set it up because my CRM doesn't actually have a spot for like operating procedures. So I set it up like a course. And so
Okay.
there's, course settings in there. And I just like my regular course, and I put each operating procedure. So it was like, if you're trying to like do something with, for marketing, like all the Facebook stuff, it'd have a whole course on marketing, course on my account,
Okay.
course on everything. And then they kind of work their way through it. And I found that it like actually works pretty good. And the cool part about doing it as a course is that it shows the tracks. Like, so if a student was going to do it, and then they would tell you how far along they were if they watched the
Right.
video. So like if I was going to do a call with a student, I'd be like, "Did you watch the video?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Did you?" But now I could be like, "Hey, something's broken here because my VA is watching the same video like 100 times every single time." I'm like, "What? Maybe we have a conversation because I'm wasting my money and they're wasting their time. So maybe there is I like the idea of being able to track it. Sorry, I went on a kind of a rant there, but
Yeah,
I
that's
like,
interesting.
yeah, I like that idea. And the cool part is now once I got it all documented, like how to, do acquisitions, how to do each part of the business. I'm like, okay, now now that it's documented, I don't have to do it. In most cases, unless there's sensitive information. I keep all the sensitive stuff myself. But I'm like, okay, maybe I can like now farm this out to the VA, and I did that for now a couple of years, and I'm like, and what I've slowly been doing is like, I wonder if I could farm this out to AI instead of
Yeah.
if you have a layout of how it all works, how to do stuff. And for a while, I was really struggling with stuff where you need passwords, but now I figured out that it was anyway. This is the um. I know we weren't planning on talking about this, and I kind of went on a rant, but once you get stuff processed for people who are listening to us, you can do so much more with your business. Like the processes are so important because now it's documentable. Now it doesn't have to be you, and it doesn't have to be you. It could be a VA, it could be a AI, and depending on what it is, you can just start getting rid of your stuff. Because I think as I grew, because I started with the small stuff as well, and I still do the small stuff. To be completely honest, I do both, right? Um, as you grow, you just want to free up your time. The point of this wasn't to leave your 9 to 5 job and then work twice as hard for yourself.
Right. Yeah. And it starts to add up. There's a lot of small activities that add up in
Yeah,
in asset management and real estate investing. Just routine, repetitive insurance renewals and LLC renewals, and there's just a lot of things that add up.
yeah. And so how do you keep track of all that with just LLC renewals, just different things? You just use Google Calendar. Like what do you?
I use Asana for that, so I have all my
Okay.
kind of repeat activities. So yeah, various tools, and I'm thinking the same thing, right? Like, there's a lot of things I'm testing out to see if AI can do this automatically, how I can improve my processes and then marry them with the right tools so that they happen, by default. And I have people that support a lot of this stuff, but even that could be improved.
Oh yeah. So like for people who are interested, or even myself being interested, because I'm always curious about what everyone else is doing. What is your role? What are you like? Do you raise the funds? Do you do the underwriting? What when you're doing these projects? What is your role?
Yeah, so on the big deals, I help source the deals, but right now I'm not the primary sourcer. My partners are,
Yep.
and then I raise capital alongside them. Handle a lot of we do a lot of pref equity on our deals as well. So the pref negotiations, kind of the underwriting evaluation. I kind of serve as the executive, like the investment committee.
Yeah.
So they bring the deals, and then I kind of push on them and try to figure out why they don't work, so
Yeah.
that we have a kind of constructive tension there, so that we're not all just like motivated to make a deal work.
Yeah.
And then I'm the primary asset manager on all our
Okay. Okay.
deals. So I hire the PMs, work with the property managers on a weekly basis, set their goals, review their budgets, lay out the capex plan, make sure that's on executing properly, evaluate buy sell decisions. So asset management is really my primary, but I also do sourcing and capital raising.
That makes sense. That was going to be my next question because off the start, you're talking about a lot of acquisitions tasks that are involved in setting before you close stuff up. And I was going to say, well, what's your day to day look like
Yeah,
then?
day to day is a lot of asset management.
A lot of asset management. Okay. Awesome. I don't know. I got through my questions. So, yeah, maybe I don't know. You want to go talk about lessons? You want to talk about like what you guys are doing now? What's the best way to, tailor this conversation?
Um, I think it's worth it. For people that are getting started, it's worth it. I think, to talk about property management,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of different levels of property management. There's you could find decent property managers that do kind of condos and single families. I feel like that's a
Yep.
a niche that a lot of people fall into. And then I've had great experience with, we'll say, 70 units plus property management. And those are very different companies, and they don't overlap at all. Um, and in the middle, it can be difficult. Finding good property managers that will do, we'll say, a 5 unit up to a 50 unit can be very hard. They often are just overlaps of the other two. So they're condo kind of property managers that are like, yeah, I can do a 20 unit,
Yeah.
but they can't. they don't they don't understand like an apartment complex dynamic. They don't have their procedures laid out to handle, renewals and maintenance. And there are some out there, but they're harder to find than you'd think. And there's a lot of bad ones uh, that can fool you in the beginning. So I would say, I've been through a lot of property managers. I had one property in Kentucky that went through 5 property managers for a 5-year hold,
Yikes.
and they weren't one a year. I mean, there was a couple of years where we had like 3, and it the deal actually returned well because we got it at a great basis, but it was a slog. So I would advise people to really find property managers in a market ahead of time because they're a great resource. And if you can work with them during acquisitions, they can give you feedback on, oh, here's how, here's what my operating expenses would look like. Or, they can almost help you underwrite.
Yeah.
And you can get a sense of how well they communicate, how interested they are in growing their business, kind of what their capabilities are. Because a lot of property managers, when you dig down, are just like 2-man shows and don't have any processes and procedures. They just grew from,
They were
from
managing
doing
their own and they started managing others.
exactly. And that way, if you can get them ahead of time, you have confidence going in that you have boots on the ground. I invest outside of my market, so having someone in the market is very helpful. And also, you can start developing that relationship ahead of time, so you know how they're going to operate once they take over your property. So I think property management sometimes can get bolted on last minute, like, oh, we have a deal, now we're just going to go find a property manager to run this. And that's how that deal went. That turned quite a bit on property management. I think we hired the property management company like 2 weeks before closing.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. We fired them within 6 months, and we should have fired them in a month. And then also, the minute you start feeling something's off, you need to dig in and start looking for a replacement, because I've certainly had, changing property managers was difficult, but that like fear of being a hassle is only going to just bring your property down. And it takes quite a while for properties to recover that have been run poorly, because you have bad residents that are put in that are not going to get out anytime soon. They could be there for a year, ideally, right? Which means they're actually paying their rent. Or if they need to be evicted, it's going to be, 2 to 5 months, depending on where you live. So, fast action when things aren't going well is also key.
Yeah. So you just mentioned like some, definitely actionable items there, but like, are there red flags, like, before you're even hiring the property manager, like things you should ask them beforehand that you maybe like when you were going through 5 property managers in one 5-year hold on a project, maybe you could have rooted out a few of them off the start. Is there anything that you?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, with AI, things are updating all the time, right? But I had a list of questions I asked the property manager that's like, 10 questions, and now it's, like 50 or, but in general, it's just a long conversation with specific details. Like, how do you do this? How do you think about this? What's the eviction timeline in your county?
Yeah.
What are the major delays in it? How do you have a lawyer that you work with? Do you compare? What do you bid for projects versus what do you just go to your go-to vendor on? Where do you source your appliances? Just like all these things that I'm used to dealing with. And when they say like, oh, it's a good question, we typically go to this one guy, and it just tells you that they're not that professional, that they don't have a system for, I want anything over, say, $2,000. I want them to get 3 bids, just automatically. I don't have to ask them. It's just get 3 bids, put them in a table, and then give me your commentary. Like, yeah, this isn't the lowest, but we use these guys all the time, and they deliver. Okay, that works. Doesn't need to be the lowest. It just needs to happen. Versus like, oh, we've never dealt with any of these people before, but I guess we recommend the lowest person. Well, why is that?
The lowest person is not necessarily the best person, right? Like,
correct.
and
Right.
like you were mentioning this before, but like the team size is some of the questions I'm always asking about. And so I'm like, hey, say I got like, a leaky faucet. Are you sending a plumber? Or are you sending a
Right.
handyman? Like who
Hmm.
who is doing this? Like, am I getting a bill that's expensive or like, uh, you
Absolutely.
what am I in for something little? Especially with those mid-sized ones, like the smaller ones. Like if you get into the 100 plus, you get up to the, higher ones, you might be able to have property management on site, and that's a whole different game.
Right.
But when you're like, 30 unit, there's no way. There's
No.
no way you can possibly afford to do that. So a lot of it's just like, who is doing there? Am I charged travel time for to
Hmm.
drive there? Is it gas? Like, what is it? I like to like ask situational questions, like,
Right.
what is it? What would this cost? And sometimes I'm like, even what is a window replacement? And like, what kind of windows are you putting in? And do you size them properly, or you just find the cheap ones at Menards and just throw them in that don't fit quite properly? Because I've
Right.
had that. You learn from things that they've done.
Yep.
So anyway, I love the situational questions too, where I'm just like, if this happened, the stuff that's happened to you in the past, what would you do?
Right. And I agree with you. Understanding the team, like who works there, like who's my interface on a daily basis? Is it you as the owner that I'm interviewing, or whoever I'm interviewing? Who's above you? Who's below you? What's your support staff look like? Do you guys have property management? What if it's Appfolio? Say, do you have an Appfolio kind of expert that does all the coding? Or I have one property that the way they have it set up, there's like no belly button who is responsible for the property. There's like a leasing agent who does a clump of properties. There's a maintenance guy who does a clump of properties. And then there's like the COO who I talk to, but she doesn't necessarily deal with the property at all. So
Yeah.
it's just a weird structure. And if I had known that ahead of time, I probably wouldn't have gone with them, because I want to know. I like to have a dedicated property manager. That's my sort of, contact, and they, talk to leasing, talk to maintenance, um, and understand everything. And if they have a question, I totally understand that. But you need that point person. So
Oh,
understanding the structure is important.
yeah. No, and like some of these like really small companies, like I'm not saying stay away from small companies. In all honesty, some of the best property managers are at the small companies because they care more and they don't have as many properties and it's a bigger deal to them, your stuff. Um, but I found like some of them, you're like, hey, I didn't get a response for a week. Like, I went on vacation. You're like, there was no out of office message. Like there's like I've
Right.
just been messaging you over and over again. What do you mean? Like there's
Yeah.
no warning, no. I didn't get an email ahead of time of an alternate contact. And then you're my person, and have no out of office. I'm like, boom, oh, you're
Right.
stressing me
And
out.
definitely get recommendations, right? And
Yeah,
and then ask those recommendations questions, because sometimes people will give you the recommendations of the owners who are like set it and forget it owners.
yeah.
Like, oh, they're great. I haven't talked to them in 6 months. Like, all right, well, you're not an owner I really want to get a
No,
recommendation from.
no, because honestly, what I want to hear is, I want to hear a story where something bad happened and they responded to the situation correctly and solve the problem. Hey, I never have a problem, everything works fine. I'm like, sounds like you have a new building and I want to see that they can handle problems because everyone, you said Appfolio, Buildium, all these different softwares, they can all collect money, make the
Right.
payments, do the stuff. Everybody can do that. It's how they react to situations, how they what do they do when stuff doesn't right? Do they well? And like even when you're asking those situational conversations, just like, and when did you involve the owner? When did this happen? Like, how did the process go? I want to hear the story, and I want to hear
Hmm.
something bad that happened. And typically, they do not want to talk about when stuff goes bad at all. They want to
You
they
mean
want
the
to talk
property
about
managers or
the
the
property
owners?
managers. They want to say
Oh
that
yeah,
everything's gonna be perfect, but especially when you're interviewing them. No, no, everything's perfect with us.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I
I
want,
mean,
I
they're
know,
in
I
sales. They're selling too.
awesome. Chris, this is fun. So for people who are interested, you're like, hey, you said you're buying some multifamily buildings, you're doing some 100 plus. People are like, hey, tell us about your company. How do we work together? What do you do? What are you looking to buy right now? Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, sure. So um, right now we're looking in the Atlanta, Charlotte, and Raleigh market. we buy 100 plus units. We just closed on a 188 unit property, 2001 build outside of Atlanta 2 weeks ago.
Congrats. Awesome.
Syndicated all the capital. Yeah, thanks. I was just down there last week. It looks great. We're excited about, taking over and getting some of the CapEx going on it. We syndicate all our investments. So we have always looking for investors. And we should have another deal hopefully under contract in the next, I'll say 8 weeks. And we're looking to raise some more capital. I can be reached at emcapitalgroup.com, which is my website. And then Chris Lento at emcapitalgroup.com is my email. And I'll always reach out. I'm happy to have a call. I talked to some interesting guys from UMass Amherst last week about they're trying to like tokenize real estate and then use Bitcoin to fund it. They had like all these ideas, and there was something there. And I'm like, I'll spend a half an hour kind of giving you my opinion about what I think is good here, where some hiccups could be. So I'm always happy to have a conversation.
That's awesome. And like that's awesome to hear that all the acquisitions you're doing, because I've talked to a lot of syndicators and they slowed down in the recent and I think you can correct me if I'm completely wrong, but I know that some of them they just bought at the wrong time and their refinances were coming in as interest rates were going up and they got themselves into some trouble, which slowed down the momentum a lot. So hearing that you're going and buying still and doing stuff it's encouraging. It shows that the market's doing better. The things are picking up and people are wanting to invest. People aren't scared to put their money into real estate and, like that there actually is deals that make sense and think people are interested to do them.
Yeah. 23 and 24 are pretty slow.
Yeah.
And then we started doing a good amount of deals again. We did 80 million in deals last year.
Oh, nice.
And we just closed a $33 million deal in March, early March. So, we're active. And there's capital out there. It's not as easy to find, and the deals are getting better. I think the sellers are getting more realistic with the market. So we're seeing that gap close. 23, 24 was like,
they wanted prices from 2 years ago, and
they did. It was understandable, right? Because they were there 2 years ago, but they're just not there anymore. So it took a while for that to come together.
Realistic to come through. Love it. Anyway, Chris, thank you for sharing. Thank you for all this information. A lot of takeaways. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Glenn. Good conversation.
That was a nice video. Bye.